there is no denial that Euro Truck Simulator is an amazingly relaxing game. A lot of people are playing this game just to run away from their problems and feel relaxed while doing that. But there is important distinction that people need to have while choosing to play this game. And it is depending on what you play with it, it will become completely different experience. So this is actually one of the few games where controller of the game actually makes quite a big of a difference. And for that reason, I wanted to test out different ways to play this game. The first one that is very obvious for any PC owners was, of course, keyboard. And yeah, even though game is quite relaxing and quite beautiful experience with keyboard as well, it is a simulation and keyboard is not allowing to feel the game to its fullest. You actually cannot feel acceleration, you cannot do gradual accelerations, you cannot do gradual turnings, and buttons are way too spread around to make you feel as relaxed and as comfortable as possible while playing this game. And for that reason, keyboard is actually the worst way to play this game, even though it's not technically bad at all. The second way was, of course, controller. And in this case, I was using an Xbox controller. And to be fair, it was a bit of an upgrade because for the first time, you have an analog input and you actually can feel gradual acceleration and deceleration as well as gradual turn. And despite people thinking that Xbox controller does not have enough buttons for ETS, well, it actually does. You will be able to do most things with the controller. However, it's not peak of a comfort as well. You still have to use both your hands and it's not giving you a feeling of actually driving a truck. You'll be playing it like any other driving game. So the next best thing was, of course, wheel. And this is the choice of the most professional players of this game. However, I had an issue. I don't have a wheel and I'm not planning to get a wheel because I'm not that into car games. What I'm into is more or less flying games and space games. So I thought, what would it be if I would play Euro Truck Simulator with the flight sticks? So I decided to do that. And for that, I used my VKB Gladiator NXT that was sent to me by VKB. By the way, this is not sponsored by them. They just sent it to me to test it out. And that's how it went. First things first, I actually have two sticks, one with an omni-throttle attachment and one without. And because ETS2 does not require that many analog inputs, I decided to go with only one. So I decided to go with only left stick while freeing my right hand for a mouse. And for the first question for most probably would be, was it a plug-and-play experience or not? And the answer is, well, kinda yes and kinda not. You see, ETS supports a lot of different inputs, but with most of them, it does not map it by itself. So when I connected my NXT Evo, it recognized it, but asked me whether I wanted to use it as a mouse input or not. Well, of course I said not, and then it just appeared on my settings. However, nothing was mapped on it, meaning that I needed to map everything. And because I already knew what keys I wanted to map, those were actually keys that I mapped on it. It was acceleration, brake/reverse, left turn and right turn, horn, headlights, windshield wipers, parking brake, left and right blinkers, enter key, attach trailer key, map button, engine start button, and cruise control keys. In my case, it was CC toggle, add speed, and decrease speed. I did not add shifter keys before because I prefer to drive automatic. Yes, I know, I prefer it that way. And despite mapping all of those buttons, I actually did not use almost 20 buttons on keys. Yes, I actually did not use 20 buttons on a stick, meaning that if I wanted to add more functions like shifter keys and all kinds of additional buttons, I could add it. So I mapped everything, used my right hand for the mouse and also for changing the cameras, and because my mouse has additional buttons on it, and I started the game. And let me tell you, it felt absolutely amazing. I did not expect how well it felt to drive the car in this way. I changed the position of a few buttons here and there, but overall it was an amazing experience. And mostly because of one thing. Every button that I needed was within the reach without me lifting my hand from a stick at all. I could reach most buttons with my thumb finger, my index finger, and with my pinky. And because throttle and turning was assigned to the main axis, X and Y in this case, it felt incredibly relaxing to drive. Plus, because of the shape of an omni-throttle, my hand was resting at all times, meaning that I did not have any straining movements and my hand was rested at all times. Would I feel the same way on a wheel? Maybe and maybe not. Because this stick has so many buttons and they're all so conveniently placed, it was incredibly easy to achieve anything that I want in the game without actually lifting my hand from a stick. The entire experience with the game was so elevated for me that for the first time ever, I was playing for around 8 hours non-stop without actually feeling tired. And of course, having YouTube running on a secondary monitor helped as well. I could not believe how amazing it felt. And it was all pretty easy to set up and incredibly easy to play with. But now, would I recommend this to everyone? Well, first things first, if you are a car game lover, you'll probably of course prefer wheel because yeah, it feels more realistic. Wheel and pedals feel much more realistic. But if you want something of a middle ground between having as rested as possible because you don't need your feet for the the pedals because you actually accelerate and decelerate with your hand. You don't need your right hand because all it's used for is just for looking around. And your left hand does not need to be lifted, and your fingers are not actually in a distorted position like it is on a keyboard. If you want something of a middle ground between the as realistic as possible and as relaxed as possible, this is the way to go. Would I recommend this to people who have not used any of such controllers and just want to use it for ETS2? Well, probably not. But would I recommend people who play flying games as well to use it in their ETS2? I absolutely do. And actually, for the people who like simulation games, whether it's flying or driving, and want something that is useful for both and want it for as cheap as possible, I think this is the cheapest way to go. Because even in flying games, you can use a HOTAS setup, meaning that you can use one stick and a mouse for flying, which is very viable for games like War Thunder or even for the games like Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen. And I cannot believe that I did not try it earlier. Again, this is not sponsored and no one asked me to do that. I just decided to test it myself and I absolutely loved it, and I cannot play ETS anymore with anything else. Maybe the VR will be next step up for me, but this is the best experience that I had with ETS2. And yes, I have played it with a wheel as well. But what do you think? Is the viable played like that or not? And also, if you want the review for those sticks, you can find it right here. And if you want the video about ETS2, you can find it right here. Oh, and you can subscribe here as well. And I'm gonna see you in the next video. Take care.